Alright, so arrays. What's an array? Well, what happens when you declare any variable anywhere in Java? Well, say we declared a character array. So we got a character, I'm going to call it letter, and I'm going to set it equal, I'm going to initialize it to the value A, capital A. Well, what happens when we do that? Well, in memory, at some location in memory, you're going to stick a capital A there, without the quotes, obviously. I'm just putting it there so you know it's a character, not anything else random. And you're going to have a pointer named letter for your compiler to know where you put that value. All right, so instead of you writing some random memory location like 1EFA437B, some random string of letters and numbers, instead of that memory location, you don't have to remember that. All you have to remember is letter, and it'll know where you're talking about, and it'll be able to get the values you want. All right, so that's the cool part about the compiler and high-level programming in general, is that you don't have to remember crazy numbers like this guy. All right, so that's what that's for. All right. Well, when you do a character array, all you're telling this guy is that you've got more than one letter, or whatever data type you tell it that it's using, following that. So instead of having just A, you can have like the entire alphabet here if you wanted to do something like that for whatever reason, and you could keep going, right? All right, so that's what this is, the power of this is. Instead of just having one name to index one location, you can quickly index the rest of these guys following that just with a simple convention. All right, so let me show you that really quick. Okay, so instead of using a single character, I'm going to use a character array. How we do that is like this. The data type that you're going to use, in this case a character, or a char, or a car, however you want to pronounce it, and then open square brace, close square brace. All right, that gives you, or you tell the compiler that you're going to be declaring an array of type character here. So what does that matter? Well, how big is a character? Well, a character is 16 bits in Java. It's other sizes in other programming languages, but in Java it's a 16-bit or a 2-byte data type. Well, the array, once you declare it, once you actually pass it some information, will give you that, and will say, hey, every 16 bits is going to be a new character. So the compiler will know that and will be able to step easily through your characters without messing it up. All right. And the reason character is 16 bits is so that it supports Unicode. You can just write the Unicode value for whatever letter you want in memory, and it'll work just fine. All right, so let's just declare this guy. Character, open square brace, close square brace. I'm going to call this car array, like that. That's going to be the name I give it. And then I'm going to initialize it to a value. I'm going to set it equal to the word hello using characters instead of a string, right? So now I've kind of created a fake string using this syntax. If you want to initialize it like you know exactly how many letters and what word you want to store in there and you don't want any extra space, you can go ahead and do it just like that. All right? That's the easy way. And what this actually does in memory is, well, if you remember from a second ago, I told you that the name you give something is just a pointer to a location in memory. So if we're in the computer's memory, if we're talking about the memory we're using for our program, and we just say that this is some arbitrary address inside memory, and that car array, the variable name, points to that, then all this means is that we've got these guys in these memory locations. All right, so, and then just nothing else below it, right? Just waiting for us to give it some more stuff. All right, so that's all that does. Well, just to show you guys something fun with this, they're kind of odd. They're zero indexed. So how many letters do we have in this guy? Easy, we're at 5. So the length of this array, length equals 5, the number we've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That's the length. We know how many letters we've got in it. That's what this is. All right. Well, arrays are zero indexed, meaning that the very first spot is always referred to as the zeroth location in your index, in your array. All right? So it's zero indexed, or zero indexed, however you want to write it. So that means that whenever you look at spot 0, you're going to be looking at the first location in the array. So if I ask you to look at the third location in the array, that's easy, right? That's this guy. Well, what index is that? Well, if the first one's 0, 1, that's index 2. All right? So if you wanted to look at that, you would have to call that thing by using the 2 index, and you would do that like this. If I could write. All right, so you would pass a 2 into those square braces to tell it that you mean this spot right here or this spot right here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and index our memory over here. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Notice that the maximum index location is 1 less than the length of our array. We already know that the length of this array is 5. We passed in 5 things to it, so it's 5. And now we know that the max index is length minus 1. Right? That's the max index location. All right, so I showed you this a second ago. Character array 2. If we wanted to change the third location in the array, we want to change index 2, the third location, to a capital L. We could just use this guy right here and do that. And that says, hey, this character, the third character in the array, index location 2, I want to make it a capital L. And that would do the same as having done that. And all it does is replace it in memory. All right, so it just, you do this command here, and it goes and it looks to this spot in memory and fixes it to whatever you assigned it to here. All right, so that's how this entire notation works. You just put open square braces, the index location you want, and then whatever you want to do to it. Okay, so let's do something fun with this, or as fun as we can get with this anyway. All right, so you guys remember a for loop? All right, well, I'm going to use a for loop. I'm going to use a for loop to print each one of these characters like they were a string. Just like if you wrote the word hello like this, for whatever reason you wanted to write it like that, I'm going to write that. All right, I'm going to show you how to do that in code. So in code, we'd have to start a for loop, right? So somewhere you've got a method, you got your main method, and you start a for loop. So you're going to need some kind of counting variable, some kind of index on your for loop so that you can loop on it, right? Well, I'm just going to use I because it's short, and I'm going to set it equal to 0 to start off with. All right, so int I, and here, where do we want this to stop? If we just want it to print HELLO, well, we set it equal to 0 so that it'll get H, so that when we do car array I, it gets the 0 location, right? So I'm going to do, this is the actual stuff that we do in the command, system.out.println. Actually print, we don't want to print line, we want it to go straight out. System.out.print, and then just tell it car array index location I. Alright, so that's the magic. That's where it actually prints. But how do we get it to loop the exact number of times we want it to loop? Well, we know it's got to loop 5 times, right? 0, and then stop before it reaches the length of this array. Well, the length of this array is 5, so we could do I is less than 5, or we could do I is less than or equal to 4, so that it catches the 4 and doesn't get to the 5. Either of those will work. I don't care which one you use in that sort of situation, but in a minute I'm going to come back to this and give you a much better way to use something there. I just want you to get this first. All right. So after you figure out how many of these you want to do, how many times you want to step through your for loop, You're going to do this and then say, okay, well, I want to increment my counter by 1. So I'm going to do I++. And then I'm going to do for loop and then stop the for loop there. So what this does is it prints HELLO, but then it leaves your cursor right immediately following that, right? Because we're using print statements and not print line statements. So in order to fix for that, you would just do this. And that just tells it, hey, don't print anything, just hit return. Because we're using a print line here, not just a print. All right, and that would take this and put it here. All right, now that does exactly what we wanted to do. All right, and well, I'm going to show you one last thing with this guy that uses this length that we talked about earlier. All right, so what's the size of our array? Well, so far our array has got 5 things in it, so that could be the size. We'll just say that it's 5. Well, that's the length, right? Well, wouldn't it be nice, since that's what we're counting to less than, we're doing I is less than 5, and so we're counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're counting these guys. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just have a number for that 5, if that was stored somewhere, like we actually knew what the length was? Well, we have that. So I'm just going to delete this right here. Right, so the cool thing that you could do is you could do, hey, I want to know what the length of this car array is. So car array dot length. Awesome. That's it. All right, and then you could start this guy. All right, so we replaced the number 5 by calling the actual length of the character array. Now, this would be kind of funky if you declared this character array to have more numbers in it than 5. For instance, if you're declaring a different type of array, not a character array, or if you didn't know exactly what you were going to store and you wanted a default size, you could just go, okay, well, let's say I only wanted to store 10 characters. Alright, see how that works? Basically, you're saying, hey, I created a new character array. I declared it, and I'm setting it equal to a new character array of size 10. Just pass in the size to your square braces, and you're good to go. Now, if we did something like this on that, and we didn't have anything past the first 5 letters, you'd be printing either garbage or possibly null. So you want to make sure that if you're doing something like this up here, that you want to use a try-catch to stop any random non-good stuff from happening. Alright, so you can use this method to declare other things as well. So if you wanted to use an integer array, you could say, hey, I've got an integer array. I'm going to call it whatever, int r, and it's going to be a new integer array of size 7. Alright, so 0 through 6. Or you could just do the curly brace method and just say whatever your numbers were. So 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, etc. Alright, so whatever numbers you wanted to put in it. And however many things you put here would be the size of your size or length of your array. Alright?